Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez confirmed that the former presidential candidate of Venezuelan far-right Edmundo Gonzalez had left the country for Spain after the government of Venezuela granted him a safe passage. In Algeria, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune was re-elected with 94.65% of the votes for a second five-year term in office. And in Syria, an Israeli attack near Masyaf city left 14 civilians killed and 43 others wounded. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez confirmed that the former presidential candidate of the Venezuelan far-right, Edmundo Gonzalez, had left the country for Spain after the government of Venezuela granted him a safe passage. Through Telegram, she announced that on September 7th, opposition citizen Edmundo Gonzalez, who has been a voluntary refugee in the embassy of the Kingdom of Spain in Caracas for several days, had left the country and requested political asylum from that government. She then added that once the pertinent contacts between both governments had taken place, the facts of the case had been met, and in compliance with international legality, Venezuela has granted the due safe conduct for the sake of the tranquility and political peace of the country. Finally, she highlighted that this conduct reaffirms the respect for the law that has prevailed in the actions of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in the international community. Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Iván Gil, announced that the former right-wing candidate Gonzalez was taking refuge in the embassy of the Netherlands during the violent events that took place in the country after the presidential elections of last July 28th.
Mr. Gonzalez Urrutia took refuge in the embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands one day after the elections. That is to say, his plan was never an electoral issue.
Similarly, regarding the statements made by the Dutch foreign minister, the Venezuelan foreign minister pointed out that the former far-right candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, had told the government of the Netherlands of his intention to leave the country.
Not only did he enter the embassy and ask for guest status, but he asked to leave the country and told the government of the Netherlands, who confirmed it in this communication, of his own free will, Mr. Gonzalez Urrutia wanted to leave the country.
Moving on to other news, Colombia created the first education system of Latin America that preserved the identity of indigenous peoples. This system preserves ancestral knowledge, strengthens cultural identity, and promotes respect for the traditions of the native communities. The Organization of Indigenous Peoples of the Colombian Amazon announced on September 7th the creation of the first indigenous education system in the region. The Minister of Education, Daniel Rojas Medellin, signed the act in which he committed the ministers of the national government involved in the effort to launch the program to sign the decree law. The minister emphasized that 3 decades after the proclamation of the 1990 Constitution, it is the government of Gustavo Petro that signs the act formalizing the first indigenous education system of Latin America. And the National Electoral Council of Honduras called on political parties and citizens to participate in the upcoming primary elections to be held on March 9, 2025. The president of the National Electoral Council, Ana Paola Holt Garcia, together with the other members of the council, expressed that this call formally marks the beginning of the electoral process. She also stated that the primaries will allow the election of 3 presidential nominees, 20 deputies to the Central American Parliament, 128 congressmen, and 298 mayors. Previously, the National Congress unanimously approved a special budget of nearly $60 million to guarantee the 2025 primary and general elections.
Honduras pasa por tiempos difíciles y todo indica que el contexto de las elecciones será.
Honduras is going through difficult times, and everything indicates that the context of the elections will be complex. In a polarized country where political adversaries make accusations against each other that, with or without reason, generate an undesirable atmosphere of doubts and tension. Making elections in this context is a challenge to be assumed with determination, courage, and the spirit of country. As a member of the plenary that will be sworn in the next few days, I am aware of our enormous responsibility, of the balances and the equilibrium that the 3 of us must necessarily build for the sake of the trustworthiness of the process.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Commissions of Constitutional Affairs and Legislative Studies of the Mexican Senate approved this September the resolution of the reform to the judicial power. After 6 hours of debate, the resolution received 25 votes in favor and 12 against. The reform was promoted by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and seeks to have judges, ministers elected by popular vote. The project has generated strong resistance because it would completely modify the judicial power. It establishes that ministers of the Supreme Court, members of the Council of the Federal Judiciary, and magistrates of the Federal Electoral Tribunal, and district judges would be appointed in open elections. The following step is to the resolution to be discussed in the full Senate.
Nothing is more expensive than not having justice, because that is the mandate given to us by the people. Everything else, not having justice, having 98% impunity, costs this country billions of pesos. That is why it is necessary that we take risks, that we are not afraid of the people. We have to do something. We have to break the wall of impunity and nepotism that exists in the judiciary, and we have to do it decisively. And the popular election of judges and magistrates is about that we break that wall in which a few families, half of the judiciary, are family members. And one says, well, it's okay if they are professionals who have made the career. Yes, it does happen. Because, how does the magistrate who appointed the judge rebuke them? How does he or she rebuke them? How does he or she do judicial discipline? That is why the reform is very important and has very interesting things that we have to carry out.
The government of Vietnam reported that 46 citizens lost their lives due to the heavy rains caused by Typhoon Yagi in the north of the country. In this context, meteorological authorities informed that at least 22 civilians are still missing amid landslides and floods triggered by the weather phenomenon. In addition, thousands of homes and businesses reported power outages, while several roads flooded and many telecommunication networks were interrupted. Although Typhoon Yagi has downgraded to a tropical depression, meteorological authorities warn of continued rainfall, flooding, and landslides. And an out-of-control wildfire in Los Angeles in the United States forced hundreds of residents to evacuate their homes amid a heat wave sweeping the metropolitan area. The fire started on Thursday in the San Bernardino National Forest. Since then, the fire has spread, and as of Sunday, some 70 square kilometers of grass and chaparral had been burned. California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency on Saturday night, and evacuation orders were issued in the communities of Running Springs, Arrow Bear Lake, as well as warnings of possible evacuations in other areas. 600 firefighters, assisted by helicopters, were deployed to combat the blaze, and at least 3 personnel were injured during the efforts. In our news, in Nigeria, a fuel tanker exploded after colliding with a truck carrying passengers and cattle in northern Niger State, killing at least 52 people. In this context, a spokesman for the Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Ibrahim Husseini, said the victims were given a mass burial following Sunday's early morning accident and explosion. The official added that 2 other vehicles, a crane and a pickup van, were also involved in the incident, where more than 50 cattle were also burned alive. Fatal truck accidents are frequent along the major roads in Nigeria, primarily due to the lack of an efficient railway system to transport cargo. And in Algeria, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune was re-elected with 94.65% of the votes. The National Independent Authority for Election reported a 48% turnout, The Electoral Authority added that the candidate for the Movement of Society for Peace obtained 3.17% of the votes, while the candidate for the Socialist Forces Front obtained 2.16%. The National Electoral Authority highlighted the voting took place peacefully and with complete normality.
I'm really pleased with Tebboune's victory. Long live Tebboune.
We're so happy. You can't imagine how happy we are. Our people are happy. We got this result in accordance with the law. No one can say that this is a stolen vote or that it is not fair.
Meanwhile, in Russia, the leader of the ruling United Russia Party, Dmitry Medvedev, highlighted the celebration of regional elections in 83 federal entities, which began on Friday, September 6th and concluded on Sunday, September 8th. Through his social medias, Medvedev stated that in total, 3,500 mandates were contested in an organized way, with staff in accordance with Russian laws. Local media reports informed that almost 4,000 election campaigns were held. Furthermore, direct elections were held in 21 regions for top executive positions, while in 4 other regions, governors were elected by local parliaments. On Monday, during his visit to Timor-Leste, Pope Francis addressed the nation's youth abuse scandal involving clergy members. The Catholic majority nation has been shocked in recent years by several child sexual assault cases perpetrated by clergymen. Recent cases include that of Novo-winning Bishop Carlos Ximenez Bello, who the Vatican secretly punished over allegations he sexually abused young children for decades. In another prominent case, U.S. priest Richard Dashback was found guilty in 2021 of abusing orphan disadvantaged girls and sentenced to 12 years in prison. In this context, the pontiff, who is set to host a huge mass on Tuesday, expected to draw more than half the country's population, called upon the nation to act responsibly to prevent abuses.
And let us not forget so many children and adolescents whose dignity has been wounded. This phenomenon is flourishing all over the world. We are all called upon to act responsibly to prevent all kinds of abuse and to guarantee a serene growth for our young people.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcasts, and some more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Syria, the number of victims of an Israeli attack in the vicinity of Masyaf city in the western Hama countryside rose to 57. According to the authorities, 14 civilians were killed after the Tel Aviv aggression, while 43 others were wounded, 6 of whom are in a hospital in critical condition. The Syrian Ministry of Defense reported that these air attacks, executed by Israeli fighter jets, caused a fire in the Nahir Abbas area, where firefighting teams are working to control it. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, these attacks have been the most violent in recent years. On the other hand, Israel has not yet issued any statement on the matter. Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip took the lives of at least 10 people on Monday, as the genocide reaches its 339th day. A series of Israeli airstrikes hit homes in Al-Bureij and Al-Nusayrat refugee camps in central Gaza, killing 7 Palestinians and injuring several more. In this context, family members gathered outside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah to bid farewell to their loved ones who were killed during the day. According to health authorities, at least 40,972 people have been killed by Israel since October 7th. Palestinian authorities denounced that more than 630,000 students in the Gaza Strip will not be able to return to schools this Monday due to the Israeli siege, while the new academic year 2024-2025 began on Monday in the occupied West Bank. The schooling of the Gazan students has been disrupted for the second year, as at least 58,000 students were expected to enter the first grade on September. On the contrary, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, more than 25,000 children have been killed or injured in Israeli attacks since last October 7th. In addition, most of the close to 200 UNRWA schools in Gaza were turned into shelters for the displaced, and 70% of them were bombed. In total, about 90% of the 307 public schools buildings have been destroyed. And in Jordan, hundreds of people demonstrated in solidarity with the Palestinian people and to condemn the crimes of the Israeli regime in Gaza and occupied West Bank. Crowded demonstration marched through the streets of Amman, the capital of the country, to condemn the genocide perpetrated by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories. During the protest, they set fire to an Israeli flag and chanted slogans against the Zionist regime. And in Pakistan, thousands of people demonstrated in Islamabad to demand the release of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. This way, supporters of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party marched from different parts of the country to converge on the streets of the country's capital. The local government had blockaded the main entry points to the city with cargo containers and riot police deployed. However, protesters continued their march and demanded that Khan be released. Demonstrators alleged that the former prime minister, who was imprisoned more than a year ago, was victim of a campaign of persecution aimed at removing him from the electoral race.
Your leader will not bend nor will allow you to bend. He does politics for you and fights for your rights. He will soon be out of jail. Mr. Imran Khan will once again be with us and will be the Prime Minister of this country.
We are here today to raise the voice against the poor people who are suffering with gas bills, electricity bills, and who cannot send their little small children to the school. And also, the main reason of our coming here to this get-together is to bring our leader back.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez started his official 4-day visit to China, during which he will meet with Chinese leaders to discuss issues of mutual interest. This way, Sánchez, who is accompanied by his Foreign Minister and Trade Secretary, met with President Xi Jinping, Premier Li Qiang, and the country's top legislator Zhao Leji. According to China's Foreign Ministry, it's hoped that Sánchez's visit will advance bilateral relations, deepen mutual trust, address global challenges through high-quality cooperation, and add new dimensions to China's partnership with the European nation. In this context, it is worth highlighting that the current visit is Spanish leader's second trip to the Asian country in less than 2 years.
The purpose of my visit, President Xi, is to further deepen our bilateral relations on the basis of mutual respect and mutual recognition. And I am therefore pleased that today we have signed very important agreements in multiple areas, agreements that reaffirm our bilateral commitment to work together in green development, in trade, in bilateral investment, in initiatives for the promotion of culture, education, and scientific research.
In addition, the Spanish Prime Minister stressed the importance of strengthening bilateral relations between China and Europe, given their key role in the world's geopolitics.
That is why I am particularly interested that during this meeting, we can address the dramatic situation in some of the countries of Europe such as Ukraine, but also in Palestine. The respect for international law and the principles enshrined in the UN Charter must be our aim. President Xi, China plays a central role in the world and Europe does too, and Spain wants to work constructively so that relations between the two regions are closer, richer and more balanced, as I believe that this will benefit and prosper our societies.
And Paris ends its first edition as host of the Paralympic Games this September 8th with the accomplishments and also points to be improved in terms of inclusion for diversity and mobility in the city. Although the French capital was a symbol of progress in most aspects of the event, the lack of access for inclusive mobility in the city was also exposed. China and the United States once again showed their power in the medal standings and competed for first place along with the United Kingdom. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our social medias on X, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.